Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into a single piece of legislation that's designed to completely rewrite America's social contract. It's called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It's this law that promises huge tax cuts, but also makes these massive changes to healthcare and government spending. We're going to get right into the source material to see what's really going on.
So, back in July of 2025, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, or OBBA for short, was signed into law. Now, instead of passing dozens of little laws, the thinking here was to go big. I mean, really big. The goal was to enact an entire presidential agenda in one single sweeping move that touches pretty much every part of American life. But almost immediately, this single number, this one right here, from the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, it just ignited a total firestorm of controversy.
Yep, that's how much the CBO says this bill will add to the national debt over the next decade. And, a number that big, it immediately makes you ask, okay, how is this being paid for? And maybe more importantly, who is paying for it? So let's get into it. What is actually inside a bill that costs nearly $3 trillion? It's a huge law, hundreds of provisions, so we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the key policy changes. Then we're going to uncover the pretty dramatic story of how it passed. And finally, we'll explore what the projected consequences are for the country. So first up, a little fun fact for you. The official law actually has no short title. That popular name, the OBBA, was actually stripped out during the negotiations. But you know how it is. The name stuck, and honestly, it perfectly captures the bill's massive scope. Okay, to really get a handle on a bill this enormous, it's way easier to group its policies into a few big themes. We're going to look at taxes, social programs, and where the government's spending priorities are really shifting. All right, let's start with taxes. The heart of the bill's tax policy is making those 2017 individual tax cuts permanent, which stops a tax hike that was on the horizon for a lot of people. It also throws in some new temporary deductions that are really aimed at working families. But, and this is a key shift, to help pay for all this, the bill starts phasing out a lot of the clean energy tax credits that came from the previous administration. Now for social programs. And this is where the bill makes its deepest cuts. We're talking over $1.2 trillion. The stated goal here is to reduce dependency on government programs, and that includes a big 12% cut to Medicaid and adding new work requirements for folks receiving both healthcare and food assistance, which really tightens who's eligible for those benefits. This slide right here, it really tells the story. It lays out the core trade-off at the heart of the bill. You can literally see the scales tipping. As funding for the social safety net goes down, that money gets funneled elsewhere. The bill pours $150 billion in new defense spending and another $170 billion for border security. And to put that into perspective for you, the budget increase for ICE makes it the single most funded federal law enforcement agency in the entire country. Now, passing a bill this sweeping is, never easy, and the OPBBA's journey was especially dramatic. It had to rely on this special kind of fast-track process, and it all came down to some of the absolute narrowest votes we've seen in recent American history. So, how'd they get it done? Well, they used a really powerful legislative tool. It's called budget reconciliation. This was the absolute key to unlocking passage. What it does is it lets certain budget bills just bypass the Senate's 60-vote filibuster rule. That means they only needed a simple majority, 51 votes, to succeed. Without that, this bill would have likely been dead on arrival. In this timeline, look at this. It just shows how incredibly close it came to failure. It passed the House by a single vote. Then it hit a 50-50 tie in the Senate, which forced the vice president to come in and cast the tie-breaking vote. At every single stage, the entire agenda was just hanging on by a thread. So the bill passed. But as you can imagine, that was just the beginning. Now we need to look at its ripple effect. With the law on the books, what are the projected consequences? Let's take a look at the official CBO analysis and what the early public reaction has been. So, despite becoming law, the bill really struggled to win over the public. This Pew Research poll shows that nearly half of Americans oppose it, while less than a third are in favor. And that pretty big unsure slice there, it really suggests that the bill's complexity might have left a lot of voters just struggling to understand its full impact. Here's another really striking projection from the Congressional Budget Office. And this is a number that has absolutely become a flashpoint in the debate. That is the estimated number of people who will lose their health insurance over the next decade. And the CBO analysis, it links this loss directly to the cuts and the new work requirements in the Medicaid program. It really highlights a direct impact on the nation's social safety net.
This quote from the bill's opponents really captures the central economic critique. The argument is pretty simple. When you cut taxes for some people and you cut benefits for others, you're not just changing policy, you are actively redirecting the flow of wealth in the country. And you know what? This CBO table puts hard numbers on that very argument. Just look at the two extremes. The highest 10% of earners, they're projected to see a 2.7% income boost, mostly driven by the tax cuts. Meanwhile, the lowest 10% are projected to see their incomes fall by 3.1%, driven by those program cuts. So at the end of the day, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act represents a really fundamental shift in national priorities. It makes a very clear choice about who the government should help and how it should help them. And as its effects unfold over the next decade, it leaves us with one central question. Who ultimately benefits from these massive shifts?